they fell in love with Brian because they saw that we fell in love with Brian. You know, one of the things I like to do in closing, I like to talk to my client, like we're talking now, forget about the jury and everyone else in the courtroom, and just, I walk you through all the things that have happened to him. We're sorry, Brian, you have this terrible neurological condition and it's not getting any better. And we're sorry, Brian, it's spread to your 4 limbs. And we're sorry, Brian, you'll never hold another job again in your life. We're sorry, Brian, you'll never throw the ball with your boys or wrestle with them ever again. And it's just these moments in trial where you, because you know your client so well, it allows the emotion to just bubble up, you know, right to the surface. And it's just so powerful. And then they're like, we need to help this kid. So our client was a flooring installer. So he's at a new construction for a new house, and he's there after a lot of different other subcontractors have been there, and he's there to put the floors in. And so in a new house, they don't have power inside. So all the power comes from these like temporary electrical boxes with breakers like you have in your house. And so he goes to the temporary electrical box to plug his flooring equipment in, and he goes to plug it in, and bam, he gets electrocuted. There's an explosion. His hand gets black and he gets fried. He gets thrown back. There's an eyewitness to the case, and it was his coworker. That's the easy part of the case. The question is, how did it happen? Why did it happen? So Brian comes down with something called complex regional pain syndrome. It's called CRPS or CRIPS. And what it does is it takes your autonomic nervous system, which regulates things like heat and cooling and fight or flight, and it doesn't carry pain signals. But when you get CRPS, it starts to. It goes haywire. And so now you're always in fight or flight, and whenever you're hot or cold, pain is being shot into your body. It affected his right hand where the explosion was, then it spread to his left arm, and then down to both legs. So if you get it in all 4 limbs, it doesn't get any worse. 33 years old, father of 3 young boys. The box that caused the explosion, gone. The company had thrown it away. And now we can figure out how we're gonna win the case without any evidence. The case was now switched from why did it happen, because we can't examine the box, to why'd you throw the box away? When did you throw it away? We found out that this company had told 4 different people 4 different stories of how the box was destroyed, when the box was destroyed, where they destroyed it. We called it a moving fiction that changed depending on who they were talking to and when they were talking to them. We had to do a couple of things. We had to convince the court, which we did, to issue a spoliation sanction motion to create what's called a rebuttable presumption of causation and liability. The judge issued an order saying that because you destroyed the piece of evidence, the only piece of evidence, the jury must presume that the box was dangerous and it caused his injuries. So here are the major issues to be resolved at trial. Well, they're saying it was all Brian's fault, my guy's fault. He shouldn't have been in there. And what we think Brian was doing, says the defense, was fiddling with all the parts of the box in a way that would cause it to explode. And flooring guys have been known to do this, because why else would a box explode? Why else would it be electrocuted? And so we had to fight that argument. We also had to fight the argument that they were blaming his employer for not training him not to do these things with an electrical box. And we had to bring in some amazing experts showing that Brian did nothing wrong. And this is what we did. So we brought in he was actually the current electrical supervisor inspector for the city of Westminster. And he comes in, former master electrician, and he says, Brian did nothing wrong. Completely normal for someone in Brian's situation to try and get power out of this thing. And there's no evidence, because there's no box, of him fiddling with anything that would have caused this to happen. But I still have to get the jury upset at the other side. We're like, why did you throw this thing away? You knew someone was injured, which they admitted to. They knew the thing was burned to smithereens, and they threw it away. What does that suggest? Suggests they're guilty. So that's what we had to make the trial about. So surveillance footage was our biggest concern coming in. They surveyed him for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and he looked very, very normal on these surveillance tapes. He's at his kid's baseball game, cheering him on. He's at his kid's football game when his kid scores a touchdown, running down the field to congratulate him. Now we're making claims that he can't work anymore. He can't install floors. He can't run. He can't lift anything. And he's running on tape. And whenever you see someone on surveillance video, they just look like a criminal. Just because of the way, like the grainy, you know, the way it looks. And so we're like, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do? And I was like, you know what? We had like this come to Jesus moment. We're like, we just have to own these things. So what we did is we showed the jury the worst of the surveillance videos. We put his doctor up there, who was great, and we said, let's go through these videos the jury's heard so much about. And let's watch all these things Brian shouldn't be doing and explain to the jury if this is consistent with someone who's claiming that they have CRPS. And so we went through the running video. I was like, doctor, you know, what does it look like to you? And I thought he couldn't run. She's like, it's really sad actually to watch him try and run like that. You know, clearly he's excited to be with his son and to celebrate, and he's just in pain running. And I was like, would you encourage your clients and patients, someone like Brian, to just give up on life and not go to kids' games and not run and congratulate his son? Or do you want him to keep trying things, even if it hurts? She's like, we absolutely want him. I'm proud to see him out there doing these things. And I was like, is that okay? She's like, well, should he do that? Probably not. Is he trying to be a good dad? Absolutely. And I go, do you know how he felt the next day? He was probably in a lot of pain. She's like, absolutely. But you know, as a parent, these are the things you do. Putting on the doctor to explain the surveillance videos, tackling it head on, that was the way to go about it. And then we flipped it on them. You know, shame on them. You know, Brian gets electrocuted, and then what happens? They spy on him. They send these secret cameramen while he's with his children playing soccer to then show you in court, you know, suggesting he's a liar. And this is the best part. This is the best story that's ever come out of any trial I've ever had. In opening statement, for the first time, we hear that the reason that they threw the box away was that their father, it was a family electrical company, had passed away that year in 2018. And so they were grieving. It was the process of hospice and passing. And it was so hard to keep track of things. And, you know, you'll have to forgive us. You know, this is part of the human grieving cycle. I said, you know, I haven't heard that yet. We've filed a lot of motions on this. Maybe we should look into this. And it was actually Sarah's idea, who I tried the case with. She's like, I'm going to go check out the, you know, obituaries and, you know, the records. And sure enough, he didn't die that year. He died the year before. So we go, we print out the obituary from the Boulder Daily Camera. We got that piece of paper. We print out like the coroner's report, something like that. These two official documents. And we got to spring the trap on them. We got to let the jury know that they're lying through their teeth trying to get sympathy. This has to be the question that we end with. This has got to be like the end. Nothing else can come after this. And so, all right, so Mr. Heil, I do have one more question. I need to ask you about your father's passing. Can I ask you a few questions about that? Sure, absolutely. So Mr. Heil, you told us earlier, or you heard it from your lawyers, that your father had passed away in 2018. That's right. And that's when you guys threw the box away. That's correct. I go, may I approach, Your Honor? And she's like, why not? I approach Mr. Heil, and I have my two documents, and I say, the problem I have, Mr. Heil, is that you've testified that your father passed away in 2018. But isn't it true he passed away a whole year prior, before this incident even happened? Well, no, that's not true. Well, I have here the Boulder Daily Camera obituary report and the coroner's report that say otherwise. Take a look at these. Slide them over. You can hear a pin drop in the entire courtroom. He looks down at them. He looks up at me. He looks down at them. He looks over at his lawyer. He looks at me. You're absolutely right. No further questions, Your Honor. I walk away. The witness on the stand turns to the judge. He goes, Judge, but can I... There are no questions pending, Mr. Heil. Go back to your counsel's table. He gets up. He walks over. Trial was over after that. I mean, after that moment, it was all downhill. I mean, they offered to pay $3 million the next day. My guy said no. Jury comes back with a verdict of $16 million. I'm so proud of him for having the courage to go and say no to $3 million, because that's a lot of money. The big takeaway from this case, and I think all cases, we were only able to create this moving fiction of all these lies by the defense by looking under every stone, deposing everybody, holding them accountable, not taking anything at face value, and continuing to pine away to try and figure out what really happened, taking nothing they say at face value.